today we're talking about recently passed legislation that has resulted in Canadian news sites having their links blocked from being posted on certain social media platforms. Bill C-18, the Online News Act, was passed earlier this year and requires Google and Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, to pay for showing links to Canadian news sites. In response to the legislation, Meta is now blocking links to Canadian news on those platforms for many users. Many users can no longer find Canadian news on Instagram or Facebook. Google is not yet blocking news from search results, but has called this law a link tax and has suggested that blocking for search results of Canadian news may be coming later this year if this issue is not resolved. Why did the government pass this law? And what does the loss of access to news or news links mean for our democracy? Can the law be fixed so that Canadians can stay informed about what's going on in our country? Here today to discuss this are two experts, Professor Michael Geist from the University of Ottawa School of Law and Matt Hatfield of OpenMedia. Thank you both so much for joining me today. Michael, I'll start with you. There are a lot of competing narratives about what is happening. Meta is now blocking news links, and they say it's because of this law. But the government is saying that Meta is an American tech giant refusing to pay their, quote, fair share of revenue for news producers or creators. Now, I've also seen traditional media now running ads attacking the platforms for blocking their news. And I think that just a lot of Canadians are confused. They want to be able to read the news on the platforms they use. They want to be able to share news. Basically, what I'm asking is, whose fault is it that they can't?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and thanks so much for having me on the program. I think much of the blame lies with the government and with the media lobby groups that pushed the government to adopt this approach. Because I think there were a number of options that were open to the government if they were looking to get more support from some of the big tech companies for media in this country. But the approach they took, one that involves, as you mentioned, basically mandated payments for links. Right. Once you link, if you link to that news content, you'd be required to negotiate agreements with a wide range of media outlets. That really represented a red line for many of these companies because linking is such a core part of the free flow of information online. And saying that you had to pay for linking, not reproducing the content, not making full copies, for example, and running ads against it, but actually driving traffic back to the original source. The notion that they would be required to pay for that was highly problematic given how important linking is. And so they telegraphed from day one that this is where we were heading. And it seemed to me that both the government and the media lobby largely shrugged off those risks and thought it was all just a bluff. And now we're seeing the result. As you say, users not able to share that content, media companies hit in very significant ways as they lose the free referrals and they lose the deals that they had. It's, I think, just an epic miscalculation by the government and one where there are no winners, just a whole lot of losers.
Matt, what a lot of people just don't understand, what a lot of Canadians who are now stuck not able to post or access news links, what they want to know is why the government did this to begin with. Can you explain the origin of the law or the purpose of it? What was it designed to achieve here?
Yeah, so I mean, there is a real crisis in news production. So a lot of people, especially in rural Canada and smaller communities, will know local news coverage has been rapidly declining. We don't see the same funding available for sort of expensive accountability journalism as used to exist. And that's a pretty serious problem for good governance, for democracy, and so on. But unfortunately, the government has taken this problem on in quite a shallow way. And really, as Michael said, they sort of looked at Australia and said, "Oh, we could do that." Or really, more than them saying that, I think some of Canada's largest news outlets came to them and said, "You need to do this for us."
Right.
And rather than trying to solve sort of the actual problem, they are trying to make this just a money transfer bill for large outlets, which aren't necessarily the ones that we've lost or the ones that provide the reporting we need.
Matt, just a question. We've got about 45 seconds left. But if the goal is to support the news industry, isn't this actually going to hurt if the blocking is implemented, since now people can't access news through these platforms that they use, and now news outlets will lose viewers as well as ad revenue?
Yeah, this is a disaster for everyone. Like Michael said, I mean, news outlets are going to lose out big. There's not going to be new revenue from Meta, at least, and perhaps not even from Google. You can only explain it if you assume the government just never believed this would happen, even though they were told many times it would happen. And I think you can kind of see that in an edge of panic in how they're talking about the bill and trying to sort things out with Google, at least.